Hello everyone, I am the Manic Kirby. Welcome to my channel, The Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews under the deck text. On this episode of The Brewery, I'll be discussing my take on a commander from Bloomburrow, Baylen the Haymaker. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel and reduce the cost to you. But the very best way you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. There are plenty of perks for being a patron, such as early access to certain videos, exclusive deck text, gifts, and more for as little as $1. You could also become a channel member for just 99 cents. Show off your support with a logo next to your name and exclusive emojis. Or you can always just support my channel for free by simply liking, subscribing, and sharing, which also helps out a lot. I put out a video every Monday, so you don't want to miss out. You can join my Discord server for free if you want to join the Commander Tavern community. All pertinent links are down in the description. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Balin is a 4/3 warrior rabbit for 1 red, 1 green, and 1 white. It has 3 activated abilities relying on tokens. Tap 2 of them to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, tap 3 to draw a card, and tap 4 to put 3 +1/+1 counters on Balin and give it trample until end of turn. While it has no built-in way of creating tokens, that's not a problem for a deck in these colors. This means that we can build a deck that can go tall and or wide, killing off an opponent with Balin while we kill the other 2 with a horde of tokens. That being said, let's start off with token production. I want to be as efficient as possible, so I included spells that could create more tokens than their mana value and casting cost, as well as using lands to not take up spell slots. So let's start with those. Dwarven Mine, Gingerbread Cabin, Colony Garden, Field of the Dead, Castle Ardenvale, Fountain Port, Kirk Keep, Mirex, Springjack Pasture, the Shire, and Vitu-Ghazi, the City Tree, all tap for mana, so they're amazing for land slots, meaning that you don't lose spell slots for running them, making them the easiest token creators for the slot. The first 4 have the potential of creating a token upon entering the battlefield, with Field of the Dead being the best one once we have 7 or more lands in play. The first 2 have the bonus of being fetched for. Speaking of fetched lands, the 9 included in the deck also work wonders with Field of the Dead, potentially scoring us 2 zombie tokens that same turn. The rest of the lands here require activating to create the token, which are good mana sinks to use at the beginning of the opponent's end step before ours, if we had open mana and nothing to do with it. Legion's Landing isn't a land per se, but it is a 1 CMC spell that creates 1 token, so its mana value to token output is at least 1-to-1. Then it's very easy to transform into Adanto the First Fort. This is yet another land that can tap for mana or be activated to create a token. Again, these are pretty self-explanatory, but just as easy to overlook. Soken-san Crucible of Defiance is another land that I don't consider as a land slot because it's used more as a way to create tokens. Granted, if you miss your land drop, use it as a land. But it's a great way to create tokens once we control at least 2 legends, even better if we have 3. With's Charm and Increasing Devotion also do a good job of creating tokens while also having a 1-to-1 ratio. The Charm also has additional modes that can be useful in a pinch. The Devotion having Flashback makes it even better, creating 10 tokens for 9 mana when we cast it with Flashback. Arachnogenesis, Galadrim Ambush, Azuri's Predation, Call the Coppercoats, Windswift Slice, and Fungal Sprouting have the potential of having a way better ratio though. Sure, these are dependent on external factors in order to amass us a ton of tokens. However, that'll happen more often than not in multiplayer casual Commander. The first 2 are amazing because they also serve as somewhat of fog effects that also create tons of tokens. Azuri's Ambush can function as a sort of board wipe if we can fight to the death, so they serve other functions as well. Same with Artifact Mutation, Aura Mutation, and Entrapment Maneuver. Not only are these relatively cheap pieces of interaction, but we can also potentially get a ton of tokens out of it too. Imagine blowing up a Rhystic Study for just 2 mana and then getting 3 tokens for it on top of that, at instant speed no less. Don't worry, the deck is still running non-synergistic interaction like Tibalt's Trickery, Beast Within, Chaos Warp, Generous Gift, and Stroke of Midnight for single targets, Guffrey Wright's History, Decimate, and Unexplained Absence for multiple single targets, and Vandal Blast for an artifact board wipe. Tibalt's Trickery is especially useful at countering board wipes, the type of effect we naturally want to avoid most, but we'll see the protective effects in the deck soon enough. Going back to creating tokens, Secure the Waste, Grand Crescendo, Kozilek's Command, March of the Multitudes, and White Sun Zenith give us a modular amount of tokens where we get whatever we sink into X. However, just like the lands, these being instants means that we can use them more as mana sinks at the end of the turn before ours. If we already have tokens in play, we can tap them down 2 at a time to generate mana to get even more tokens from these X spells. As a bonus, March of Multitudes has Convoke, so it's even better than Balin's mana ability. Scute Swarm has the potential of creating tons of tokens thanks to landfall. Once it starts creating token copies of itself, we'll fill the board exponentially. So those previously mentioned 9 fetch lands do even further work here along with Field of the Deck. Peregrine Took and Queen Olenna of Rodrock don't create tokens per se, but they create extra tokens whenever we create a token. That's already a good enough effect that adds up very quickly. Especially with effects that only create one token, we're essentially doubling the amount we made. However, when strictly speaking of token multiplication, you know I have to include Anointed Procession, Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, Primal Vigor, Mondrak Glory Dominance, and Ohertak Deepest Foundation. Doubling Season and Primal Vigor are even better in this deck because they also double the +1/+1 counters placed on our commander. So not only do we get double the tokens to tap down to make it stronger, but it becomes even more stronger due to the doubling of the +1/+1 counters on itself. When playing these cards, keep in mind that Ohertak only triples creature tokens, not treasures, food, etc. At least it returns transformed as a land when it dies, so it's quite difficult to truly remove from our battlefield, and it's fairly easy to transform back into a creature. With all these instants and sorceries, Primal Amulet does a good job at helping us get even more bang for our buck by reducing their generic costs. Best of all, when it transforms, it becomes a land that can copy an instant or sorcery that was paid with its mana. So, in a sense, it's another token multiplication effect when used on a token creating instant or sorcery. Or, maybe you want to double up on your interaction. This card is such an all-star here. Speaking of all-stars, Jetmir Nexus of Rebels is included to further make the most of our tokens. Sure, we can tap them down for mana, cards, or pumping our commander for that Voltron win. However, with Jetmir in play, our board becomes even more dangerous, granting us a potential win all on its own. You can also run Craterhoof Behemoth and or Moonshaker Cavalry as finishers too. I don't run them in this deck for lack of space, but you can definitely consider these routes for your own build. Same with token doubling effects like Raise the Redeemed and Second Harvest. Honestly, this commander has so many different ways to go about it that if I wanted to go over all of my ideas, this video would be over an hour long. So let's just stick to what I actually built and tested instead. As just mentioned, there are multiple ways to make the most of these tokens we're creating. Jetmir is just one example, but we can also draw a metric ton of cards, well beyond just our commander's middle ability. Mentor of the Meek, Symmetry Matrix, Rumor Gatherer, Tribute to the World Tree, and Watley Radiant Champion all draw a card off a creature entering the battlefield. Well, the first two require you pay 1 generic each time and with some restrictions, while the Tribute will pump the creature if they are too weak instead, giving us yet another potential win con too. As for Watley, you need the emblem. But with how many creature tokens we'll be creating, that shouldn't be an issue. Return of the Wild Speaker, Soul's Majesty, Rich Card's Expertise, and Season of Gathering all draw cards depending on a creature's power. With Baylen becoming immensely powerful with its third ability, it alone should make these spells draw tons of cards. As always, bonus points for chaining either of the first two off of Rich Card's Expertise. The Season is an amazing modal spell and can be used however you need, so keep that in mind. Shamanic Revelation, Camaraderie, and Collective Unconscious are possibly the best card draw spells in the deck since they draw a card for each creature we control, which is hopefully a ton of cards. The amount of cards these will draw us should come as no surprise. The deck draws so many cards that Reliquary Tower is included. Sure, it's a 3-colored deck and we want as few non-colored mana sources as possible, but as previously seen, colorless sources are good for casting Kozilek's command. This token horde obviously needs protecting. In a format infamous for incessant board wipes, we want to come on top of them. However, tokens are susceptible to anything that removes them from the battlefield. That's why we have to phase them out in response. The deck's running Galadriel's Dismissal, Guardian of Faith, Teferi's Protection, Clever Concealment, and the No More half of Gallifrey Falls No More. You can still run even further protective effects depending on your meta, like Heroic Intervention, Rapid Vigor, Boros Charm, etc. But those will not protect from Mass Blink, Exile, Tuck, Bounce, etc. effects. As for protecting the Voltron win, Lightning Greaves, Swiftfoot Boots, Champion's Helm, Darksteel Plate, Mithril Coat, and Shield of Kaldra are included to protect Baylen. Fortunately, the deck runs just fine without the commander in play. We just get the bonuses of token payoffs as well as a potential commander damage one-shot win. It's also very cheap to cast the first time. In fact, the deck has plenty low mana curve, which is why Farseek, Nature's Lore, 3 Visits, and Into the North are the only mana acceleration effects in the deck. While our commander has built-in mana acceleration, you can't go wrong with my favorite Ramp Trifecta as well as Into the North, since the deck has all 3 snow duels along with one of each snow-covered basic to make the most of it. Soul Ring is the last mana acceleration card in the deck, but that's to be expected. At least it helps with casting Kozilek's command. The rest of the deck is just the rest of the lands. Apart from all of the previously mentioned lands, the deck's also running all 3 Shock lands, Jetmir's Garden, Command Tower, and Ancient Tomb. As with all of my deck techs, you can build your mana base according to your budget. Whether you include more expensive cards or even cheaper cards is up to you. You do you. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Baylen the Haymaker. What I love about the legendary creatures in Bloomburrow is that so many of them have so many different ways to build around them. I went with a more spell slinger approach here. But you could have also gone with creatures that create tokens on entering the battlefield, and then found ways to copy them, blink them, etc. There's just so many different ways to build this commander. Your imagination is a limit. That being said, let me know how you would build it in the comments. And if you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. I also want to thank any channel members. Your membership is greatly appreciated. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of the Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am the Method Kirby, and happy brewing.